Hi, welcome to ABraz Around the House. Today I'm going to be going over my most recent build, and that's a retractable vacuum in the attic. I wanted to be able to have the vacuum but not have to pull around the dust collection separator and the vacuum. It's just such a clumsy thing to be pulling around. And also the fact that I can just retract the hose right back up into the attic and hide it away whenever I'm not using it. I have the big two-stage dust collection system, and it'll be great for a lot of the tools, but many of the tools you also need a second collection. In this case, for the table saw, I will have a guard over this with an attachable spot for this vacuum. That attachable spot then requires you to do some kind of fixture on your table saw to be able to keep it above where you're cutting the wood. And since this is coming from the attic, kind of kills two birds with one stone, as I can pull it down just enough to be able to plug it in and still have the room underneath for the ability to run my boards through. So that was part of the reason why I wanted it coming from the ceiling. And the other part is, like I said, I can tuck it away whenever I'm done. I'll continue to put more out there as I transform this garage into a woodworking shop. Thanks for viewing. Let's get started. Well, we start by finding a good spot for this in the attic, and I had an area here that I thought was perfect because it's close to my attic lift and would allow me to take the dust down through that direction, and measured it out about 24 inches there on center. And so we just start with some scrap lumber that I had on my first board here to support the reel. And although that looks like it's at an angle, that's the camera lens there throwing a little bit of a curve there on it, but that's as you can see, I have a leveler on there. So this is pretty much a design as you go project, even though I thought through most of it. I still was working on some of the workable design, I guess. Just made sure I had everything good and level, both on the support and cross with the PVC pipe. This basically has to be able to turn inside this support system, and so getting everything straight and square was pretty important. I would end up using these cutouts here that I am doing right now later for a little bit of a container for the hose by flipping them upside down. You'll see what that looks like a little bit later. You ever lose your marker or your pencil? This happens to me all the time. You can see on my face I'm getting a little frustrated. It's right behind me. There it is. Little trip to Home Depot for the items that I need for this build, and starting with those rubber caps, I'm going to just cut the ends off of those and use those as a placeholder for the 4-inch PVC, so that when it turns it'll stay in track on the hose reel. are just to hold it in the slot, and then on this end is where I'll have the crank, and I'm going to use this cat and glue it in, and then I'll come in with this, and this will be where I crank it. I'll be able to go a little deeper than that, but until I glue it, I don't want to get too far in there and lose it. So, and then on this side over here, this will be where the vacuum port is hooked up. So you can see on this hooks into the Dust Right Separator here, so that'll pull out. And on this side here, I'll use this reducer, and this is not meant to go on the inside, but I think if I file this down, this little nub here down, that it will fit in here, and then I'm going to push it all the way in to about right there. I have to use this. This came with the hose. This came with the hose, and what that does is give me a swivel, and I need that swivel on the end. So what we'll do is this will be inside of here, which will then connect to like a puzzle. That'd probably be better. That way if I need to remove it, I can just pull it out. So all that's going to be completely, all it'll be where I cannot get to it will be these parts. So once these are tightened down, I won't really be able to do much because they'll be locked into place, because this will be glued in. But this could be as far as like right there. So it'd be like that. Hey ABraz, if I could be so bold as to cut in here. What I ended up doing here is using the second hose clamp as a friction fitting, and so I can actually remove it all the way up to the white connector, the reducer. So we've got basically this goes in here, this goes in here, and then my handle goes right here. I will connect this here. I'm gonna cut a hole into the side here, and that should prove interesting, but we'll cut a hole there, and I will use the PVC cement to initially hold it, and then I'm going to use JB weld to complete that weld around that, and then from here, so this will be connected once this is inserted in. So that is what the hose screws into on this end, and it also gives some swivel there. So once this is fully extended out, it'll be pointed down like this, and then when I move the hose around, that'll swivel on there as well. These came as a part of the FlexiPort Power tool hose kit, and that's the one I got for 20 bucks basically. It was marked down to $44 and I got it for $22. So, and it comes with all these extra additional, I bought 3 of these because I didn't know what all parts I would need, and so that's should work out well. Sorry if that was a little long and maybe boring, but I thought it was something that might be interesting for some to watch that process of what would work there. Here I'm drilling that hole for that port that's going to come into the hose. And using a sander here, I went ahead and made it perfect size for that to fit in. The cut went actually better than I thought it would. Here I'm using JB Weld, which is got to be one of the most tried and true products out there, and I actually love this for this type of application, and believe it's going to hold real well. I had to trim off a little bit of that coupler to get it to fit in better on this insert. I roughed it up on the edges, applied the JB Weld liberally, and I think it's going to work real well. Here I'm working on that end that has the reducer that also hooks into the Dust Right collector, and just have put some electrical tape on there to cover the hose clamps up. On to gluing this reducer in here. I just applied it real liberally inside as far as I could go, and then on the reducer itself slid it in there, and it worked out pretty good. Well, I needed a handle, and I had this broken chair, so I thought I would just use one of the legs for it. Found out that it actually had a hole already cut in the center, so worked out really good for what I needed it for. Here I'm grinding off the nubs on the PVC. Needed a couple of top braces here to set on top of the PVC to hold it in place. Well, it's time for the first test, and you can see why I needed those rubber caps to hold the PVC in line, and I wasn't quite sure how it would work as far as the friction on these cutouts, but I was prepared to try to use some rollers, but it turned really well, and I thought with a little bit of wax it'd be even better, so I just left it as is. It turned really nicely. I'm installing those cutouts that I created to hold the PVC in place. So I ended up getting a little bit of a zip tie to hold that up, just to give it a little support so it didn't fall down there. You'll see it in the reveal. Here comes the true test. I was wanting to get a good idea here if it would wind in a natural manner across there, and I was pleasantly surprised. Alright, time to get this thing hooked up. And nothing like trying to shove this body through this small opening. This is pretty straightforward here, just getting a hole in the floor and a hole in the ceiling to match up. So I needed something to give me the ability to push the hose through freely, but I didn't want that gap in the hole itself. So I had seen something somewhere, it gave me this idea. I can't remember what it was, but the door sweeps mainly are made of rubber now, but they still make this door sweep that is a material that's like a broom almost. And so the idea was to kind of form that inside here and then use our JB weld again to lock it into place. I was extremely pleased at how this part turned out. It gave it enough friction to kind of hold the hose in place, but also you don't see daylight from the bottom. A little bit of paint to finish it off, matching some of the other parts of the garage. And then we're ready to mount this thing. Here you can see where I use those cutouts and reattach them to help kind of keep the hose guided. Well, thank you for sticking around. If you've watched the video this far, you've watched the entire thing, and so I appreciate that. The channel continues to grow. We're at around 1,700 subscribers. We get a good number of views on all the videos, and so I would like to thank you for being a part of that. Hope you have a great day. Thank you, and God bless.